Hello everybody, I hope you're having an amazing day today. I would like to share with you guys my final thoughts on the Divo Knives Growler. Now, this knife has in my opinion, only one issue. It's the detent. That's it. And this is quite evident as on White Mountain Knives, where you can go and purchase this. I did purchase it when it first became available. You cannot buy any brand new at the moment. Hopefully they do some a little bit better quality control and just maybe some retweaking of how this thing is constructed, mainly in the detent. So at the moment, to buy a brand new one, 85 bucks, pretty darn good. You're getting a good bit of knife for that amount of money. You can get some used ones. At the recording of this video, there are 3. There's one that looks exactly like this, black micarta, black stone washed. And there are 2 other ones. They're the satin and it looks like also black micarta. Those guys are 70 bucks, and all 3 have the same exact issue of why they were returned: weak detent or small scratches, poor coating. But at least me personally, I was able to overcome this issue with the weak detent by adding some KPL heavy. So now the action, I wouldn't say the action suffers, but this thing was drop shutty, like super freaking slick, like super drop shutty when I first got it. It was incredible. But moving over the steel liner a little bit to increase the detent and adding some KPL heavy has definitely helped. The reverse flick on this is very snappy, but for such a light, for such a large, heavy blade, yes, I will say the detent is still light. So regardless of all that, I'm gonna be reading the specs off of White Mountain Knives. Let's go down here. So this is a design by Divo Knives, run by Kevin Johnson, Colin Mason-Pierre. Blade materials 14C 28N. Pretty good stuff. Have no complaints about it. This particular one is a black wash, and just take a look at that. I think that looks pretty darn good. Now, black washing, because it is a organic finish, you know, you can't replicate every single finish exactly the same. But I think it is relatively consistent. I think it looks pretty darn good. This one has black micarta. It's nice and smooth, very well machined. Everything is softened, not much fuzz to it. Blade thickness is 0.12. It comes down to a very thin edge, and this thing and its cutting performance is ridiculous. Oh my god, this thing is insane when it comes to cutting. I'm talking like cheapy, thin, floppy cardboard, or the thick stuff, multi-layered cardstock, paper, just really anything. This thing just blazes the material because of how tall this blade is. It's insane. It cuts great. It's just so good. Blade length 3.07, handle thickness 0.43, handle length 4.49, total length overall is 7.56. I will say this is definitely a full-size knife, full-size plus. So it's definitely very hand-filling, super comfortable actually. And weight 4 ounces on the dot, which I'm cool with that. It's not a brick, it's not a lightweight either. I think it's just right actually. And you can actually reverse the pocket clip, which is super cool. It has a little plug, something you don't see too often, especially under the $100 price range. Hopefully that becomes more of a staple within the budget territory. And yes, on this channel, anything that is under $100, I consider to be budget. Anything over $100, you're getting into enthusiastic materials and qualities there. And that is really it. Manufactured in China, I believe. Oh, it says here actually, it's manufactured by Shilden Knives. Now, I personally have never experienced anything by Shilden. They don't really have any in-house designs that speak to me per se, but they're kind of funky looking. But overall, when I took this thing apart, cleaned it, it was a pretty well constructed. It's very similar to a lot of Sativians, QSP in that range. So QSP, Sativian, if you guys don't know about Sativian, they're definitely a budget company. Like most of their most of their knives you can have for around like 30 bucks, 35 bucks. They do have some premium ones with pretty cool materials and designs, but they're pretty wacky looking. They kind of remind me of like a really cheap Tucson, a Tucson brand, because they have so many different wacky designs and they work with a lot of different people. But as far as I know, a lot of this stuff is in-house. But I've come to very much enjoy Sativian's build quality for the price. It is remarkable for the price, absolutely. Same thing with Tucson. While they have a lot of crazy designs, a lot of what they put out is, you know, undeniably extremely high quality and a lot of value. Same thing with this. I think this is pretty darn good and a lot of knife for the money. A couple of people complain about the clip. In use, it's perfect. It's fine. Doesn't need to be changed. If anything, I could have had a wire clip like Divo has been putting on a lot of their other knives. The Stout has a wire clip. The Mash has a wire clip. They're great. They're not, it's not a premium thing, but it doesn't need to be. It's a clip. And personally, while it is really cool to have a fancy schmancy pocket clip out of really cool material, on this design, it just wouldn't really fit. So this is more of a utilitarian design, and man, can you just use this thing into the ground because it's such a tall design and everything is well rounded off. It is super, super comfortable in hand. No jimping back here, but it's just, it's a lot of knife to where you don't really need it. I don't feel like it's really gonna go anywhere. So this kind of grip back here even feels pretty darn good. But definitely this is right up here in that finger choil space right there. There's a lot of room right there. Good stuff for sure. And that's all, you know, about the design pretty much. So let's bring out some size comparison knives. Let's start with some Benchmades. This is my Osborne 940. And a bug out. So definitely about the same length as the bug out. The 940 is a little bit bigger, not by much, but they're definitely a whole lot skinnier, that's for sure. This thing is a wide design, and it is quite different than a lot of things that I have in my collection. So it definitely stands out, and it's been a joy to use, it really has. This is my Civivi Elementum. Let's do something a little bigger. Demco 80-20.5. Sorry about the glare there, it's from the light. Spyderco PM2. It's definitely a lot. PM2 is definitely a lot longer. Oh, there goes my table. And last but not least, a -5 lightweight. So I think that is good for size comparisons. Let's talk about this knife overall. As I've pretty much already done most of it at this point. Let's take a look at this hardware. There is the decorative side, or the right side of the knife. Nice deep milling. It's not like how it was on the Divo where it's like painted on there. Sorry, I forget the proper term, but this is definitely much nicer, definitely higher quality looking and feeling. This all back here, these I believe are T8s. Let me check really quick. I have my little bit right here. T8. No. Okay, so body screws and the pivot are T8s, but clip screws are going to be T6. Not that big of a deal. T8s all around would have been nice because it would have shared the same philosophy that the stout was built around, having, you know, T8s to, you know, one bit to take apart the entire knife. It would have been cool with this, but you know, maybe that would have driven up the cost possibly. I don't know. So there's that. Taking a closer look at this. Nice hole, everything is very clean, well rounded. Put a little lanyard in there. I personally don't really care for lanyards, but it's nice that they consider people that do. And it is inset and has flat screws, which is very wonderful. The steel liner, there are actually, it's on both sides. So the right side of it has some small holes for weight relieving, not much. They could have definitely been a lot larger. They're inset, which is definitely a premium thing. Definitely appreciate that, I like that. And the steel liner is very well machined. Everything is softened up, and there is, in my opinion, plenty of access to disengage this blade. Now, while I do have KPL heavy in here to deal with the light detent issue, the action on this thing, if you were to use original or the ultralight or whatever the lighter one is called, this thing is ridiculously smooth and with zero play, might I add. This thing is pretty darn solid and definitely brings confidence in hand for sure. This thing came well centered and is still pretty centered for the most part. Blade stock thickness seems right. Doesn't seem too chunky, doesn't seem, you know, crazy thin. If it was a little bit thinner, this thing would guarantee outsliced anything in my collection, including my little open L that I never even show, just because of how tall this blade is. You know, a blade's always going to perform only as best as its geometry and overall shape, really. But this thing is just, it's pretty darn cool. I know a lot of people having issues with such a large hole. Me personally, reverse flicking is sweet. I do have to, it's a little finicky with the thumb flick because my thumb basically just falls into that hole. It would have been nice if it was just a hair smaller, but you know what? I love reverse flicking all day long. I could do this all day long. It's extremely comfortable. Everything is very well knocked down. Nothing is sharp. It's not going to you know, tear up your nails or anything like that. On these satin versions, I can't speak for those because I personally don't have that in front of me. But at least for this one, I think it's pretty darn nice. So that's pretty much it. I don't really think I missed much at this point. Going back to the whole detent thing, there are ways around it. And you can get used to what would be a weak detent in comparison to, you know, something like that or something like that. It's different, right? So you get used to it. I personally know that Kevin, he doesn't like Demco or their way of how the spring and interacts, and there's no actual detent, or it's a pseudo detent. I know he's not the biggest fan of that, but I think he just keeps around the knife for the design, and it's cool factor because he has a really cool reblade from Transparent Knives. That thing's pretty freaking sweet. But you know, he's been very, very honest about how he feels about this going on, and a lot of people don't like that. That's okay. Like me personally, I own 3 80 20.5s because I got used to it. So with this thing, you can get used to it. It's really not that bad. So if you want to go as far as, you know, return it, that's completely up to you. That's completely okay. But I will say that there are definitely ways around it. What I did was, you know, I took this thing apart. I flexed over the the liner bar. I flexed it over a little bit to, you know, hopefully add a little bit more pressure and add some detent strength. And then using the KPL heavy, it just kind of tightens everything up, makes things a little bit I don't want to use the word hydraulic, but you have to be a little bit more intentional with this knife now. Like it almost feels like it could be on really well broken in washers. It doesn't feel like it's on bearings anymore at this point. It actually does have bearings. So you know, that's one thing, and some people could definitely view that as a downside. To me personally, I understand that there are things about this that could have been better, but for what it is, I think it's a pretty cool knife for the most part. Me personally, I will be selling my unit. I'm going to ask, what was it? I just asked for 70 bucks. In my opinion, I haven't really used this thing too much. I've sharpened it once and it's maintained a wonderful edge, and I've pretty much just been using my little, you know, keychain pocket strap, whatever, for whoever is interested in buying this off of me for 70 bucks. That offer will stay available 7 days from this video's, you know, posting date, but after that it'll be for 70 bucks on nafsale.com. I'm trying to work around the whole you know, having to pay for the shipping, because I have a buttload of money tied up in stamps that I would love to use, and I could actually get your knife to you a lot faster because I have so much money in freaking stamps versus having to pay for NAFSALE's shipping service and things like that. So helps me out. You get a nice knife, you get to see, you know, what it is in, you know, live time. The action on this thing, as I mentioned before, you have to be a little bit more intentional about it. It is extremely smooth. It feels like as if it is on really broken in washers. No play side to side, up or down, and the cutting performance of this thing is ridiculous. I would love to keep this around, but I need to make room in my collection, and if and whenever Divo knives decide to make their premium version, I will be in full support, because I definitely want one of those. So I think that something like this in a high performance blade material with some tie handles, or, you know, something carbon fiber, you know, fancy, whatever, wire pocket clip, I don't care. I think that would be pretty freaking sweet, and I'm all about it. So with that being said, I will be linking down what I can in the description. As of right now, 7 days offer, 70 bucks, shipping on me, and that's it. So just comment down below if you're interested, and we'll go back and forth and figure out how to do this transaction properly. All right, have a wonderful day, guys.